Okay, this is Mike Benoit, Tyranny Busters. And today we're going to bust some tyranny upon the mind of man that Sam Seder likes to spread. That's S-A-M-S-E-D-E-R. Big statist, big anti-libertarian, which is an anti-liberty guy. And we're going to play his video here where he's jumping all over a libertarian who wants to buy wants to have the market decide what sort of light bulb is available for him to buy. So let's start it off here.
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for calling. What's up?
Well, I've been watching your stuff on YouTube, and, you're very active against libertarians. I was just kind of curious to know why exactly. I just don't understand this concept that, why you don't want freedom in your life. Why don't you want more liberty?
No, I've got so much liberty, dude. I literally I can't even fit it anywhere. What does that mean?
Okay, now the first mistake the caller said is this Sam Seder is talking about he's okay about restricting the kind of light bulb that you can buy. Sam Seder's okay with that. The caller makes a point. He says, I just don't understand why you don't want liberty in your life. Well, it's not Sam Seder. He doesn't care about whether or not he can buy whatever size light bulb. It's our liberty. It's other people's liberty that he's controlling. He's in favor of controlling, not his own liberty. He certainly wouldn't want you to do anything to harm his liberty.
What does that mean that I don't want freedom in my life and I don't want more liberty? I don't understand what that means.
Well, first off, we could go on for hours, obviously, but there's a new law by the federal government this year alone that outlaws 100-watt and 75-watt light bulbs. Come on. Is there really a reason to outlaw 75-watt light bulbs? Is that some caution to our lives that we're going to hurt our environment by using them?
It's a waste of energy.
Yeah, so he's okay with outlawing 50 or 75 or 100-watt bulbs because they're a waste of energy. Waste of energy? I guess it's okay to go in and see how many people have. We want to save energy, and we're going to outlaw waste of energy. With that logic, it's okay to see how many. Maybe you're only supposed to have one light bulb on in each house. And only when it gets totally dark, because otherwise it's a waste of energy. And so let's get his next point. This guy's beyond.
And buy more efficient light bulbs. But honestly, let me put it to you this way. Aside from the fact that yes, it's demonstrably the case that if we switch from incandescent light bulbs to either fluorescents or LEDs, or which I prefer. Yes, it's demonstrably the case that we will actually save energy. It will help the environment. There are all sorts of benefits for it. But let me put it this to you. Is your liberty really being infringed that you can't get a 75-watt light bulb, incandescent light bulb?
See, Sam Seder here doesn't understand that, he's saying, is your liberty really infringed when you can't get this certain size light bulb? Yeah, the liberty of the people that are producing the light bulb and the liberty of the people who want to purchase the light bulb, yes, their liberty is being infringed on. Plain and simple. But Sam Seder doesn't see that as a problem. So does he see that, is their liberty being infringed on because somebody says they can't put a certain chemical in their body or do a certain thing? No, he's not going to say that. But in this controlling state that he supports here, he's going to say, yeah, your liberty is not infringed on because you can't have a free market choice, and the market can't freely choose to produce a product that doesn't, that's not harming anybody else. It's just, do that 750,000 times, and how much liberty do you have left?
Absolutely it is. I should have the freedom to choose whatever kind of light bulb I want to use as long as it's not harming another human being physically to have it.
Well, first off, It actually does. I mean, using inefficient light bulbs and using inefficient products does hurt other human beings.
It physically hurts you?
Well, I mean, it actually
hurts you.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to get down to it, yeah. I mean, I don't know that I can actually put a specific measure on it, but the more carbon that we put in the atmosphere, the more pollutants that we put in the atmosphere that provide electricity, yes, it creates asthma, it creates other health effects, it continues a global.
All right, well, and that's an absolute ridiculous argument. You know, the more people on the planet, the more CO2 you have too. So does that justify doing something about getting rid of so many people on the planet? Or go back to the other statement I made earlier about if these higher wattage light bulbs are damaging to other people, then I guess it makes sense that you know, the government's within its rights to go in and make sure that you only have one light bulb on at a certain time, and you're not putting out any of these you know, you're not causing the CO2 energy sources to cause this problem here. But if you really want to address the problem that, say, CO2 is producing and causing, then why don't you legalize hemp, Mr. Sam Seder? And in the legalization of hemp, you find that that plant pulls as much CO2 out of the air as it puts into the air when it's being burned. In other words, while it's growing, it pulls out the same CO2 that it emits when it's in its burning process. So if it's produced into a fuel, for example. So if that's the issue, no, but we got to control and let the controllers in D.C. tell us what size light bulb and what size toilet and whatever, etc., etc. Sam Seder, you tyranny upon the mind of man, you tyrant.
Warming, which has all sorts of different implications. But aside from that, wait a second. You don't have total. We can talk about your disbelief in global warming in a second. You don't have total freedom to get whatever light.
You know what? And then he puts out that this guy's got a disbelief in global warming, and that's just his arrogance, pseudo-intellectual pedancy. You know, what kind of narcissist statement is that to make to imply that onto somebody else before that somebody else had any comment in that regard?
Bulb you want? You only have freedom to get the light bulbs that they sell to you.
Exactly, and I think, you know, they're putting regulations on which light bulbs that they're allowed to produce and put out there.
So I already covered that point. The government can restrict the manufacturer and restrict the purchaser because what are they, masters? I don't know if I want to skip ahead of here or not. Let's see.
You know, and I'm sure there's plenty of light bulbs there. I'm sure 100 light bulbs.
Because your freedom, we're all less free because we don't have the ability to have entire fleets of cars that average out at 16 miles per gallon. We've lost our freedom there, right?
And that's just a ridiculous statement. So if the government will put some sort of mileage control factor on the manufacturer, you know what? Nobody and his brother here would want some gas guzzler if he can get the same performance out of something that isn't a gas guzzler. So to act like that, and of course we all strive for economy, so the marketplace would produce the economy. It's not some big Sam Seder government is going to force the gas guzzlers out of existence. Heck, people want their money to go as far as they can go. So, you know, in fact, the government protects people like, or corporations that, you know, the big oil corporations against manufacturers of products like hemp that would produce diesel fuel to be real competition. The government's in there protecting their interest, and these corporations have been protected by the government for a long time as they buy up the patents to make cars and carburetors and etc. more energy efficient. So his arguments are just blow one away.
Good point. Yeah, we have.
Yeah, definitely. Haven't we also lost our freedom to ride our horse and buggies on highways?
That's just absolutely stupid. We never had the freedom to ride our horse and buggy on these highways. We had our freedom to ride our horses and buggies on roads that were designed for horses and buggies and nothing else. So the horse and buggy on any road that's designed for travel of high speeds, no vehicle ever had the freedom to go on there and violate the actual freedom and rights of the other folks that are on those roads. But certainly it would be a violation of freedom to be able to take your horse and buggy down a country road that's, you know, speed zone of 25 or so maximum speed. But on roads that were designed for high speeds, there was never the freedom to take your horse and buggy on it. And you don't have the freedom to violate someone else's rights.
Well, I'm pretty sure you can do it as long as you have the standard lights and, you know, all the regulations.
I don't think you can take it on a highway. You have to go a minimum of 40 miles an hour.
On a highway, you couldn't do that. Yep.
Fuel efficiency standards must be driving you crazy too, right?
I mean, it bothers me, but it doesn't drive me crazy because I understand that we need to, you know, look, we have too many of these vehicles out there that are just, you know, burning away gas that we don't need to burn. They need to be more fuel efficient, not
freedom
for the environment,
hater.
but for just...
You,
what?
Freedom hater.
No, look,
you hypocrite of liberty.
So what's this smart Alec remark? Fuel efficiency standards on automobiles. Whose freedom is that violating? Well, I guess it's violating the freedom of the manufacturer. But at the same time, the reasoning for these fuel efficiency things has something to do with the pollutants, doesn't it? The idea that it's polluting our environment. So the hypocrisy and the idiocy of the argument is that we wouldn't care if the fuel efficiency was the world's worst, if the fuel that was used was a fuel that came from a product that pulled out of the atmosphere the same amount of pollutants that it puts into the atmosphere when it's being burnt. So the nonsense of this argument.
If you want to drive a car that only gets 5 miles to the gallon, I'm never going to be the one that tells you to stop doing that.
Well, but that's not the point, buddy. The point is the government sets efficiency standards.
Drive that car.
Government sets efficiency standards for vehicles. And that is an impingement on your freedom that is probably, frankly, far greater than the efficiency standards on light bulbs.
Yeah, see, but the insanity of Sam Seder's argument there is, yeah, it's an impingement on our freedom, but the real impingement on our freedom is that it outlaws these fuels that produce no carbon effect to the benefit of these fuels that they're restricting their energy to being energy efficient. It's a straw man of an argument.
You're absolutely right,
I'm shocked that you called in about the light bulbs and have neglected this whole thing about the fuel efficiency standards with the car.
I didn't call in about the light bulb. I called in about talking to you. I just brought up the light bulb first because it was just on my mind at the moment. Because I've been waiting for 30 minutes and I was just thinking about all the things that I wanted to tell you.
All right.
But that was just the first one that I thought of.
Well, let's go to number 2.
There's millions and millions of laws here that need to be taken away because they're just infringing upon our freedom. That there's no reason to have them, and there's millions of them, and they keep adding more every year, and they don't ever take one away.
All right, well, give me another one.
I mean, God, I mean, we could go on for,
What's Sam Seder going to kill this guy for not being able to give him another law right now, or tell him there isn't such a law? I remember the California legislature one year passed 900 laws, new laws. I can't tell you maybe only one of them, okay, and that had to do with a minimum meat cooking temperature. So there's 350 bills that are on the Senate's desk or their agenda list or whatever that the House passed that Republicans are complaining about because Harry Reid isn't moving them through. 350 new laws because he can't think of them. Well, you know, you can pull out the law book and look up the category of the business or the issue and or just look through the federal laws on drug prohibitions, and you'll find a bunch of them there, Sam.
No, I know there are millions of laws that are coming in every year, but just get to number 2.
Well, I'm going to go on to this video that I just watched of you talking about the EPA.
Okay.
Now, look, the federal EPA does not need to exist. Okay, statewide they can exist. Now, you said that this state, government didn't do anything to this company that was polluting this water that was caught on fire. That's when the federal government should attack the state government for not getting in on the, this corruption. It should never be the EPA attacks the corporation itself. The state government should have done that. The state government.
Yesterday on this program, 2 days ago on this program, I interviewed a guy who has done some research into a bunch of studies about the.
Okay, I'm going to skip that and go down the line here and see what else he's got.
You understand there's a difference between the relationship between, say, New Jersey and Delaware as opposed to the United States and, say, even Canada or some other country. You understand that states are not separate countries, right? That we have a federation, not a, okay.
Well, they're both wrong on that. The guy just agreed with Sam. These states are independent countries when it comes to domestic issues. That was the original intention, that the states were dominant on domestic issues, and the federal government was the federation, like this Sam just said, dealt with issues that were between the states, disputes between the states, and issues between the United States and other governments, or other nations, if you will. And but the states were dominantly independent nations when it came to domestic issues. Now, whatever perversion that exists now is not that which was instituted.
Understand that. So you understand there's a different dynamic. But you're also aware that we have.
But at the same time, these states are supposed to be run solely by themselves. They were never designed to be controlled by the federal government like they are. They weren't designed that way.
What are you talking about? When was this design that took place? That
Are you serious? Go look at it. When the founding fathers, developed this country, they wanted the states to kind of run themselves. They didn't ever imagine that the federal government, well, some of them did, but a lot of them, like Thomas Jefferson, did not. He did not think that the federal government was going to make federal laws about outlawing marijuana nationally, but some states, like California, has legalized it medically, but they still will arrest you for it federally. They never saw that happening. They're contradicting each other. These are things that are bad. These are things that should not be going on. You should allow the states to run themselves, and if they want to do something like legalize marijuana, then the feds should not be able to walk in there and arrest you for it. That's the problem that I have.
How many states were there when we had that? What was that document?
Articles of Confederation.
No, the other one that came after that. The Constitution.
The Constitution, our Constitution right now.
Yeah, it talks about how we have a federal government and states and that type of thing.
So you're saying that because we have 50 instead of 13, it makes a big difference?
No, my point is that the idea that states were not designed to be in a federal government is sort of a strange thing to say.
No, I never said that.
Oh.
I said that they were designed to be run by themselves under the federal government. We still need a federal government there to protect us as a whole, as a nation. But we would never have the FBI start walking in your front door about some federal law that is otherwise allowed by the state. That's the problem that I have. I am okay with the federal government.
So you have a problem with federal criminal statutes. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. They do not need to be putting laws into our lives the way they're doing it. Now, I understand that they can do some minor
I think on that, the caller is making good points.
laws here and there, but, we're talking the real gray area that you're going into now.
Yeah, okay. So you have a problem with federal criminal statutes. There are some that I disagree with. I think we would probably agree on in terms of marijuana. If it's legalized in the state, I think it should be legal in a state.
Legal. Legal. Exactly.
But I think that's so. But I think the federal government has authority over it because of the Commerce Clause. But that's
Now, the federal government has authority over the drug issue because of the Commerce Clause. Isn't that something? That bastardization of the Commerce Clause. This idea, because Congress is to regulate commerce, that it now has control of whatever it wants to within the states, totally negates the idea of the 10th Amendment and the 9th Amendment, that all powers not delegated to the federal government are reserved to the states. So by the bastardization of the Commerce Clause, it's okay with the guys like Sam Seder that the federal government can do whatever it wants in the domestic governance of the states. In fact, the OSHA laws are under that Commerce Clause. The OSHA laws, it's been adjudicated by the federal judiciary tyranny that under the Commerce Clause, we can have occupation, safety, health, and whatever, OSHA, due to the fact that vehicles that are used in businesses go through interstate commerce, so that gives the federal government jurisdiction to have mandated OSHA laws. And any law under the sun that the federal government wants to pass, Sam Seder thinks it's okay by the Commerce Clause. They have that power.
That's another issue.
They shouldn't.
Well, okay. I understand. What about things like it's okay if a state has slavery and another state doesn't?
Look, this is a debate about whether I personally believe in that or not. I don't personally believe in slavery.
No, well, that's very big of you. I'm not suggesting that you personally agree in slavery, and I'm also not suggesting that you personally believe that people should smoke pot. I'm asking you,
exactly.
Do you think that a state should have the right to institute slavery, and that the federal government shouldn't have any say over it?
I do.
Well, no, you see, now he's got a double-edged sword there. First off, the states don't have any right to do anything. They have powers delegated to them by the people, all right? And nobody has any rights to enslave anybody. But to guys like Sam Seder, he thinks the state has a right to enslave us through the state or the federal government through income taxes and own us as slaves and lock us up and put us through horrendous, torturous treatment if we don't comply with state-mandated slavery. So where this guy is even coming off talking about states having a right to do that, and going back to he's going to claim that somehow the federal government ended the institution of slavery, which is such a farce. The federal government kept the institution of slavery going because it didn't respect all states' rights to be sovereign. And those states who were free states who were willing to allow runaway slaves to come into their territory and exercise their freedom, the federal government wouldn't let that, by the Fugitive Slave Act, occur. Abraham Lincoln wouldn't even allow that. Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation did not free the slaves that were existing or living in the states that were not in rebellion. And so that's a real cute one, that states that were still in the Union, those slaves weren't free by the Emancipation Proclamation. The freeing of the slaves was a byproduct of the abominable war that was really a war about federal slavery. The federal government wanted to enslave, but didn't even care about the states in which slavery existed. That was not an issue. It was made an issue as the war went on because the North needed the idea of freeing the slaves to be put out there so that they could win the war.
I do. I hate to say it because that's something I can imagine. Like, I don't agree with slavery, but yeah, I think if the state wants to have slavery, then look, that's their prerogative. That's what they want to do. That's what all the people come together and they voted for that. Look, what does that say about?
Well, so the caller there is all wet. He's sanctioning slavery because the state wants it. That's just so ridiculous. I can't believe it. People don't have the right to enslave another people. So this gives a guy like Sam Seder some fodder.
There's people in that state, but hey, if they want to do it.
So, now, probably all the people won't be voting for it. I mean, just the majority in that state.
I would have to move out of the state. Okay.
Against another group of people. In fact, I would say that's far more likely to happen. Hold on.
I don't know. Like, they could do anything, okay? They could say that now 50 and 40 and all these light bulbs, you have to buy a certain type of light bulb. You have to. You know, we're going to go down from that.
I would imagine that dystopia that you're describing. Yeah, I mean, yes, I suppose it's possible.
And I could say the same to you.
I suppose it's possible that someday the government would force us all to buy black lighting or something like that. But I don't see any. We do have some freedoms, but
that's where the government.
Why their property?
And then arrest. Because you should own your own property.
Why?
You should own your property, and it's your property. You should not have anybody else touch your property.
What if it's a slave? Can you own another human being?
I can kill you.
Oh, you did say you can own another human being, right?
You're on my property. Okay, that's my property. That's
says what?
I own. That's my property.
Prove it.
Okay, if I come onto your property,
prove it.
I expect to be shot or told to leave.
Hold on for a second. Prove it. How can you prove this is your property?
Well, I mean, this is a gray area again. If I don't pay my property taxes, I will quickly lose my property.
All right, okay, you got your property taxes. Prove it to me. Show me. Show. How do you prove that you have your property?
By showing documents. I don't really know.
What kind of documents are those? Government documents? Are those government documents?
Yes. Government should be issued to protect your land. That's the thing about the federal government. That's what they should be doing.
Right, the Constitution.
Protecting our property for ours. They should not be saying it's their property. It's our property, and they should.
Government is there to ensure property rights, life and liberty rights, and to promote the general welfare.
Oh, there we go. The general welfare. Promote the general welfare by the powers granted in the Constitution. Promote the general welfare does not mean do whatever they want, whatever these 535 guys in Washington, D.C. want, that they think promotes the general welfare. And in promoting the general welfare, Sam Seder, I'm going to refer to you to the Declaration of Independence that says that we all have inalienable rights to life, liberty, and property, and that governments are instituted among men to secure these rights, all right, and to violate the individual welfare for the welfare of somebody else is not promoting the general welfare, okay? It's a violation of the individual's rights. I'm sure you don't understand that, Sam Seder.
Now, what does that mean to you, promote the general welfare?
You know, to me, general welfare means that we're gonna make sure that your everyday life can be run, and that we'll protect your borders. And we're gonna protect the fact that you can do as you please, and that people can't come and harm you on a day-to-day basis. No one can just.
Well, that's life, right? That's a protection of life. That's the protection of life. What do you think promote the general welfare means?
Well, I definitely don't think it means that we should be paying unemployment rates for 2 years. That's definitely what I don't think it means. You know, now this is again a gray area. This is the problem with politicians. They take words out of a document and they just manipulate them however they please.
Well, I'm asking you. You're not a politician. Tell me what. I mean, we need. You know, you can say this is a gray area, but I mean, if you're sitting on the Supreme Court and this comes before you, you can't go like, that's a gray area. Let's just reconvene in 20 years.
I absolutely agree. Look, if you want to ask what I personally believe, I just told you. I believe that the general welfare means that we all can. You can have your own property.
Well, that's a property right.
Okay, Sam Seder, you want to understand what promote the general welfare means in the constitutional sense. It means that when the government is securing people's rights to life, liberty, and property, by taking and dealing with those folks that are violating people's rights to life, liberty, and property, they can only write laws in that vein. And when they write laws in that vein, that promotes the general welfare. The idea that you have, that we can take away freedoms for the idea of security, does not promote the general welfare, because you end up with neither. The general welfare is promoted by the securing of our right to life, liberty, and property, and lawfully acquired property in the pursuit of happiness. This is securing the general welfare, so that when somebody violates another person, they are removed from the scene so they can't continue to violate these other people. And that, in essence, allows people to keep the fruits of their labor, for people to expand, to be creative, to be productive, to be happy. And then that's the general welfare, Sam Seder. It's not taking money from some and giving to the others. That doesn't promote the general welfare, Sam. That violates some people at the that violates some people for the benefit of others. Okay?
Life, liberty.
That's property rights. Why would they write that twice? Why would they write that twice? It obviously means something different than property rights. It obviously means something different than protection of life.
Let me ask you, what do you think it means?
Well, I think it means that we're going to try and enhance society for everybody. I think that means that we need to protect the commons, that we need to protect the things like the air and natural resources for everybody, that we need to try and
protect the air and our natural resources, but not federally, not to walk in with the EPA and then be like, oh, well,
but I'm quoting a federal document.
We're going to charge you $1 million.
No, Sam, you're not quoting a federal document. You're quoting your interpretation of a federal document. You don't recognize that the federal government had 18 powers they're delegated to it. And you don't recognize the fact that the government is not supposed to be a patron. It's supposed to be a punisher, as Thomas Paine laid it out there. And the founders understood it. It was not to act upon people in a, say, promotional sense, in a benevolent sense. It was to remove basically the cancers from society, those people who were in the business of violating other people, and to deal with that. You need to read The Law by Frederick Bastiat to understand that. Government is supposed to act as a retaliatory force to deal with those folks who have been violated, and a place for people who have been violated or think they've been violated to take their grievance to. To organize society this way is to provide for the general welfare. That's what it meant then. If you think that the government was intended, the federal government was intended to be so all-inclusive and all-intrusive, why the founders limit it to 18 powers?
Quoting a federal document.
Yeah, well, I don't believe that the federal government should be able to do that. I believe that.
Well, then you have a problem with the Constitution, buddy. You don't have a
No, Sam, you have a problem with your idiotic interpretation of the Constitution.
problem with me. Well, I mean, you got a problem with the Constitution of the United States of America.
I have a problem with all the amendments they're putting into the Constitution. I do have a problem with that, you know.
When was the last amendment they put?
It comes to that.
Do you know how many federal dollars flow in and out of Alabama? In other words, do you realize that you're living in one of the biggest moocher states in the country in terms of the federal government? That Alabama, I think it takes in more federal dollars than it pays out to the federal government?
Good. Mooch off of them then, you know? It's like, if that's the way it's going to work, then do it, you know? Why haven't they made a law about that one? Why haven't they passed a law that you can't do that, you know? I don't... like if they're going
where does a 40% tax rate, where does that kick in, the federal income tax?
Oh, Sam Seder, you know what? The better question to ask you is, what tax rate is okay for your tyranny? Huh? 80%? 90%? Government owns you? 10%? 1%? Sam Seder, anti-libertarian? Anti-liberty? Exposed by Mike Benoit of Tyranny Busters. Thanks for joining in.